Hi there, welcome to Red Army TV. Got loads to talk about. Got two fantastic guests on the sofa tonight. Got from Red Army Social and Red Army TV, Mr. Chris Lofthouse. Chris, welcome. And a good friend of mine and great Borough fan, Mr. Daz Birkett. Daz, welcome.
Evening.
Gents, we're going to talk about the last Borough game, but there is something that obviously I've known about for a long time, Daz, but it's great for the show. Daz, tell us about your granddad, Mr. Ralph Birkett. Played for the Borough.
You did?
Back in the 1930s.
Yeah.
Also, this is a picture of me scoring for England.
Yeah.
Tell us what you know about him, Daz.
Yeah, he started his career at Torquay, early 30s. And when he was still fairly young, about 21, I think, he moved to Arsenal, which was a jump of a few leagues, you know. Went on to win the league title with Arsenal, quite a famous era, the Arsenal side in the early 30s, quite a famous manager, Herbert Chapman. That was 32, 33. Right winger, my granddad, fairly quick, so I haven't inherited his genes in that regard, unfortunately. Herbert Chapman sadly died, I think, probably around about 33, 34 time. New manager came in. Granddad just didn't get on with him, and in them days you were just shipped out. You know, you didn't have a choice. It was a case of you going to Borough. You know,
obviously played for England a number of times. Tell us about the week before a big England game.
Yeah,
plays for the Borough.
Plays for the Borough.
What happened, Daz?
Got injured. Had to pull out of the squad. Yeah, it was against West Germany. I'm sure it was Main Road. It was due to be played at Man City's old ground. So I had to pull out. And a certain Stanley Matthews came in and took his place, and sadly he never got back in the side again.
Great, you know, it's great though. Great bit of local history. All right, certainly for the fans of our show, and obviously any Borough players who play for England, we've got to mention it. But brilliant fella, it's a brilliant bit of history. Thanks very much. Let's go straight into it with Wigan. Daz, I know for a fact you were there.
Yeah.
Now I've read a lot of social media over the week, and the front part of the week was very negative. It was sort of like, you know, the Borough weren't very good, and we're going back to how we were. But then towards the latter part of the week, it was, well, actually, the Borough didn't do too bad.
Yeah.
You know, just, you know, didn't put out a chance away. Chris, I'll start with you. Was it 3 points dropped, or was it a well-earned point?
I mean, very much like yourself. I didn't go to the game. I read saw the highlights, read the match reports and stuff like that, and you've hit the nail on the head. I think it was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction from a lot of fans that, you know, we couldn't beat Wigan, and, you know, we should really have won the game, all this, that and the other. Looking at it in fairness, really, if like we said on Monday, if we're not losing, if we're picking up points, can't really complain. We'd all like a 3 points every game, but if you know, teams like Wigan set up to completely nullify us and just mirror our tactics and you know, win one-on-one battles around the pitch, I mean, a draw's a fair result at the end of the day then, really, isn't it?
Daz, you were there.
I think the frustration's sort of tempered with the fact that, you know, Leeds won again and Norwich won again, and you're thinking we needed that win to keep on there.
The week before, fellas, all the results went for us, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then obviously this week, we go down there and get a draw, which, you know, again, depending on opinion, is it a good, well-earned draw or 3 points lost? But then, like you say, Daz, the teams around us all won.
Yeah.
But the performance, that's what we really want. Obviously, you watched it live.
Yeah.
Was it as negative as people in the early part of the week were talking about, or?
I mean, I can think of one save that Randolph made. You know, when he came out, down the 6-yard box from a tight angle, hit Randolph's chest. And other than that, I can't think of another good effort that Wigan had. And we didn't have loads, but Fletcher, way rounded the keeper, should have put it in, really. First half, where Howson just hit that angled sort of drive, and it hit the Somber longer rather than.
I was going to say,
just hit him, didn't it?
He didn't really react, yeah.
And then still, how it never went in off the defender or the keeper, because it went underneath them both.
Can go anywhere in the 6-yard box, can't it?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, it's that frustrating. And if our home form was great, you think, well, okay, we've got a point, and we'll, you know, get back at home and get another 3 points. But I think that's so hit and miss, isn't it? Hopefully, we can follow on from where we left off at QPR at home. You know, nice 2-0 win. So, yeah, there was that frustration, and if you're going to come in the top two, you have to beat Wigan away. You know, but we're still,
I mean,
we've still got a chance.
You've mentioned two players there who were on. It's a topic of conversation on a lot of social media sites and on a lot of fans' lips. You mentioned Fletcher and Johnny Howson. Let's start with Johnny Howson. Chris, he's been playing the wing-back role. I know you have a lot of good things to say about Johnny House.
Yeah.
But is it a natural position for him, or is he just doing as a job?
I think a bit of both, really, because he's played... Obviously, he plays his trade as a midfielder. But he's played as a wide midfielder before. We've seen him play as a wide midfielder before in a red shirt. I think the full-back role is just an extension of that. It's just asking him to do the same thing, but chase back and tackle a bit more. He's comfortable carrying the ball forward. He's comfortable running forward. He's comfortable making himself available, like at QPR. Made himself available in the box after about 12 seconds or whatever it was. It's just an extension of his natural game for me, which is why I think he looks so comfortable doing it.
I mean, he's one of them players, Johnny Housen, and he's openly gone on record, and by the way, not just only at our club, the other clubs he's played for, he just wants to play football. So I know in an interview we had with the Borough for their website, he said, I just want to play, I'll play anywhere. How important, Daz, is Johnny Housen to our team?
I think at the moment he's probably first name on the team sheet, I think. And you think where else he could play, and I do think he's suited to that role, because defensively he's good. He's not lightning quick, but he's got hellish stamina. He runs for 90 minutes, doesn't he? And so that's a position where you want to be up and down. So that suits him. Does he either play there, or does he play in the Lewis Wing position? Well, Lewis Wing is more of a goal threat. I mean, we bought Housen as a goal scorer midfielder, but he hasn't scored again as many as he should have done, really, which can be said the same for many a Borough player that we've signed recently. You know, so I think that is in that formation. That is the natural fit for him on that right side.
Well, we'll come on to Lewis Wing because you raised a good point about Lewis Wing. We'll come on to Lewis Wing a little bit later. Ashley Fletcher. Now we've spoke over the last couple of weeks about the almost enforced way that we play at the minute due to injuries and things, with obviously using Saville and Housen as the wing backs and the two up front, which we know is not always a Tony Pulis trait. He doesn't like to do that. He normally likes the one off and playing off. Is that the way forward? I mean, Fletcher looks very naive sometimes, but should he be a starter week in, week out?
We've stumbled on that formation, have we, through injuries, but thankfully we have, because around the Christmas time, Sheffield Wednesday at home, that 1-0 defeat.
I'm still having nightmares about it, mate.
How many times have I said over the last year or so, we need to sign Adam Reach?
Yeah, I went to Preston away, and we started with that formation. We had Dale Fry at right wing back, and we had George Friend. We had our traditional 5 defenders on the pitch. If you're going to play that, you either have to have full backs like a Ryan Fredericks, he would be great in that, wouldn't he? And that wing back, that type of full back. You can't have defensive.
We've talked about this before, where the formation that we've got, that would have really suited Christie and Fabio, but we let them go. So we have stumbled upon it, yeah.
Although we let them go, that both didn't want to be at the club. Yeah. Although both of them haven't said anything negative about the club. I think we mentioned on the show before, Chris, that Cyrus Christie has said in the Fulham programme that basically he just wanted to be away, and obviously we know that Fabio wanted to be away as well. They would be the ideal fit at the minute. But the way Tony Pulis plays, the gaffer plays, generally it's 4 big centre halves, isn't it, across the middle. I don't think, and again it's all about opinion, I don't think Shotton and George Friend are wing backs. In my eyes, they're both centre halves. But will he stick with that? Bear in mind, there's talk of George Friend coming back to fitness now. Do you think he'll stick, Chris, with Saville and Housen?
I hope so, because I think they've warranted it. I think they've earned it. They've done really well, and they do everything that you ask of a wing back. They're not afraid of putting a tackle in, and as Daz said, they'll both run for 90 minutes. They've got bottomless engines, really, haven't they? You never seem to see them tire at the end of a game.
I can see him putting George back in for Saville.
Yeah. Was his captain in the year? I didn't think about that aspect of it. Yeah.
You've got the left-sided third centre half, or Saville. Probably the weakest player at Wigan, I would say, just a 5 or 6 out of 10 type performance.
Still looks to me like he's found his feet.
One pace, doesn't he? I just find he.
I mean, thinking about it in a bit more depth, he could keep Saville, and as you said, bring George in at the left-hand side of the centre 3, because Dale Fry, as much as we rate him, I don't like him in that position, because he's always got to let the ball come across his body. Yeah. Because he's naturally right-sided, so there's always that split extra second of doing something before he does something. Yeah. So stick George there, and then you can have best of both worlds, really.
Yeah.
I just think it was one of them games, the Wigan game, where they were set up really near enough to mirror image us, and it just cancelled it out a little bit. But it wasn't for the want to try. And we've got loads to come on to, fellas. I mean, we're going to speak about the game coming up. We've got a few bits and bobs. I'd like to speak about Lewis Wing as well. And we'll do that after the break. Join us after the break. We're going to speak more Borough. Loads to talk about. Join us after this short break. Red Army TV. Got Chris and Daz on the sofa. Fellas, just before the break, just wanted to quickly mention Lewis Wing. Daz, you brought him up. Obviously, he's a young player, naive in some respects. How good can he be though for the team?
Oh, excellent. Yeah, he's had a couple of quiet games, but again, to me, we talked about Johnny Howson being the first name on the team sheet. Lewis Wing starts for me every game, home and away. He's got that goal threat. He's a forward-thinking player, isn't he? He's looking to play forward all the time, and Pulis wasn't sure of him, wasn't he? That the first half of the season probably, but now he's probably been a regular the last 10 games or so. Yeah. Probably started every game, if not more than that. Yeah.
I just think Chris defensively is where he's a little bit naive, but going forward, how much of a threat is he?
Well, just to address that first point, defensively he does still need a lot of guidance. One of the things I noticed was after Adama left, Pulis seems to be shouting Lewis now from the sidelines rather than Adama, trying to give him that bit of guidance just as Adama needed it last year. And the other players do seem to be, if you watch him at a corner or something like that, he's looking at the other players to see where do you want me. He's looking at people like George Trent to point and see where he wants him. So he does need that bit of guidance. But going forward, I think he's fearless. I think because he's constantly finding himself at levels that he's never played at before, and he's constantly playing teams he's never played before. He just doesn't seem to care. He just wants to. He's got no. As I said, he's got no fear.
Yeah, he's certainly established himself now, hasn't he? As for me, a starting 11 player does.
Yeah.
Well, look, fellas, we're going to come on to who is potentially going to be a club legend and there's no show where we can't mention John Obi Mikel. But before I do that, I just want to mention, and we plugged it on last week's show. And to be fair, it's our duty to really is Gary Parkinson. For those who don't know, is obviously the Borough fans are rallying around trying to make a bit of money for the Gary Parkinson. He needs some specialist treatment. Not all the treatment can come on the NHS. If you want to donate, how little or how much, whatever, any little thing will help. Just click on the GoFundMe page for Parky, and if you can, fans for Parky, and if you can do that, the family will be overjoyed. Fellas, from one legend in my eyes, because he was in my team, that 84 to 86 team, he was part of that. From one legend to potentially is going to be a massive Borough legend, and in my eyes, Daz, probably every time I've watched him play live, the best player on the pitch.
Yeah.
How good's John Obi Mikel?
Excellent. Never rated him at Chelsea. I don't know about anybody else, but never stood out for me at Chelsea. Seemed to always be holding him back and too defensive. But I don't think I've seen him give the ball away yet since he's played. Just tight under pressure. Strong but good vision. Good passer as well.
Came with that tag, Chris,
Yeah.
didn't he? Came with that tag of defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever. He just doesn't play a pass because he has to. Everything's a forward-thinking pass.
Yeah.
And very rarely loses the ball. How good is it for other players, though, Chris, having him in the side?
Before we moved on from Lewis Wing, I was going to mention that as well, that Mikel coming into the team has helped Wing and Besic. And, viewers of the show know that I've been quite critical of Besic for the early part of the season. But the pair of them, Wing and Besic, have now been given this kind of, I wouldn't say freedom, but they don't have to worry about coming back as much because they know they've got Mikel at the back who can read the game fantastically well and position himself to sort of cut out danger before it develops. He's terribly important to the whole team. He really is.
So we're going to look ahead, fellas, and before we look at the next game, which is obviously Brentford at home, I just want to run some of these teams past you. This is our running at home, the Borough. We've obviously Brentford is the next home game. We've then got Preston, Norwich, Bristol City, Hull, Stoke and Reading. Now I don't know about you, Daz, but I think that's not a bad home running.
Yeah. Not bad at all, is it?
And hopefully, touch wood, with the QPR arguing, if we've turned the corner at home, I'm thinking, is that second spot, is it achievable?
I was looking at the form guide the other day. Brentford and Preston are in the top 7 of the form guide. So the tough games, they're both mid-table, and you're thinking, well, they're not going to get relegated. They're probably not going to get in the playoffs. But Brentford in particular have got some players out of our team. Ollie Watkins is always.
Well, there was a few touted in the last transfer window, not January, the last transfer window. Obviously, we were here in the studio doing a transfer special, and I think there was 3 or 4 at one point, all Brentford players associated with the Borough. Just looking at the away games then, fellas, Villa away, Swansea away, Bolton away, Forest and Rotherham. Now, great commenting from Carl Foxton about, we were talking about formations earlier, and he was, in his opinion, he thinks that Pulis will go for sort of the traditional way he's been playing, with one up top, probably Ugal, away from home, and maybe stick with the 2 up top, Assombalonga and Fletcher at home. Chris, what are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't mind that, because our away form's been pretty decent all season, and you know, let's face it.
It seems to have worked, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly, and you know, let's face it. Up until the point where we were kind of forced to play 2 up front and Savlenhausen as wing backs, we were playing 1 up front and still getting decent results away from home. I mean, looking at those games that we've got, I think there's maybe only 2 home games that I'd worry about, and they're Norwich and Bristol, because Bristol are flying. Let's be honest, they're not that far behind us. And obviously the away game at Villa, which I think could be a tricky one.
Which is not too far away. Daz, would you go with that? Would you, if you had to say so in it, would you go the 1 up top away from home and stick with Fletcher and Assombalonga at home? Or
probably, the way they're currently playing, and I know it's only been a few games, I would stick to what we've got with Fletcher. Sort of, he's just behind Assombalonga, isn't he? He's often not.
Seems a bit fresher, doesn't it?
He's still in that sort of turn. I always think Van Lepara could probably play that role, and I don't know what that situation. I don't know what's going on there.
That's a total.
I always think he could sort of play that left-sided, you know, not out and out winger, but just off the front man. But again, you're right, that's probably another story. But
I mean, Pulis has said for a while, hasn't he, about Fletcher, that there's a player there, he just needs to express himself and get a bit more involved in games. And the chances that he's had, he looks like he's trying to do that. He's very direct, he's taking shots on goal, he's trying to make stuff happen. I can't think of the last time we had a spell of 2 up front. I think it must have been before we went back up. Because certainly when we went up, we had Negredo up front on his own, and then the last couple of seasons it's been a bit, you know, bitty. I can't remember an established partnership that we've had for a while.
So the next home game, fellas, is Brentford. Like I said, we had a lot of interest in a couple of their players, or allegedly, you know, over the transfer window. A couple are still linked, actually, for the end of the season, if you believe social media. Are they going to come and sort of get our faces, Daz, or do you think they're going to sort of come back and say, you know, come and break us down?
No, I think they'll come and play, which I think should suit us. We do struggle to break teams down. Bit of lack of creativity and invention at times. So I hope we score the first goal, because if they score the first, I can see them getting more than one. They are a positive, free flowing. You know, Ollie Watkins, Sergio Canos, Morpe's got about 15 goals plus this season, hasn't he? Probably in the 20s now. So, but I think they were probably a team that can crumble. I mean, they score a lot of goals, but they concede a lot of goals as well. Their back 4 is really shaky. So I think if we get the first goal, I think it could be like a 3-1
So looking at maybe changes to the team then, we've said George Friend is, you know, it's looking like he's going to be fit. Chris, will he come straight back in, and will he stick with the 2 up front at home, do you think?
I think, as we said earlier, it's probably on... If you look into it, he probably is going to be coming back in. He's a club captain at the end of the day. So I think if he's 100% fit, he'll probably come in either at the left-hand side of centre defence, or, you know, to take the left full-back role, wing-back role. With the 2 up front, I hope so. I don't know. You never know. Like you said, he might stick Hugo back up front on one of his own, and, you know, second-guess Brentford's tactics a bit, I think.
I mean, I would love to see us go at them with 2 up top.
I would, 100%, yeah.
And have a go at them, to be fair. What do you think, Daz, on the George Friend thing? Will he obviously he's the club captain? Is he going to come back in purely on the fact that he's the club captain, or do you think Pulis will stick with his gun and say, well, actually, you know, we haven't done too bad with this forced formation?
Yeah, because he hinted that he's not far away, Aidan Flint as well. So they could be both fit, I think, for this Saturday. If I had to put money on it now, I think he'll bring George back in. Now, I don't know whether it's that left-sided centre-back, because although Dale Fry's never put a foot wrong, it's always better to have a left-sided player bringing the ball out, isn't it, rather than Dale, who often has to cut back and play the ball inside. Yeah. So, but it could be instead of George Saville, you know. It's but I think he will come back in if he's fit on Saturday. Yeah. I
mean, certainly the big people who play the part is the fans on Saturday. Brentford generally bear in mind where it is in London, they generally bring a decent amount up. And I'm sure we'll be quite vocal. So We're at that part of the show, fellas. We're nearly at the end. Chris, prediction for Brentford?
I'm going to go 2-0 Borough.
2-0 Borough. Daz?
First goal in 20 minutes, I'll go for a 3-1.
Going to go for a 3-1.
If we scored early.
Not too bad. Well, I'll tell you what, fellas. I'll sit on the fence and go up Borough 4-0. Right?
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. It's been a great chat. Thanks for joining us on the couch. Join us next week for Red Army TV. It'll be either me or Chris. Join us next week on Red Army TV.